And finally, we will take a look at the Revit enhancements specific to the mechanical platform. The biggest Revit mechanical enhancement is something that a lot of mechanical Revit users have been waiting for. A lot of you, I'm sure, despite tight lips, have probably heard about this over the years and may have had an idea that it was coming. And the big enhancement here is, of course, the Autodesk MEP content for fabrication and the ability to use this fabrication content within your Revit model. MEP contractors and fabricators, or excuse me, MEP contractors and detailers can now create fabrication-ready models inside of Revit using content from the Autodesk fabrication products, Autodesk Fabrication CAD MEP, Autodesk Fabrication Estimate, and Autodesk Fabrication CAMDuct to ultimately allow for a more coordinated model and a much more constructible model. Autodesk Revit 2016 uses the Autodesk Fabrication MEP configuration data defined in the current version of Autodesk Fabrication products, and services from the configuration are added to the Revit product and are organized into groups as defined in the Autodesk Fabrication MEP products. ITM components within the services are then inserted from the Revit MEP fabrication part browser. So you're literally dragging and dropping these parts into your Revit model, essentially just as you would a family, or essentially just as you would from a tool palette in AutoCAD. Fabrication components provide detailed connection definitions, more granular control on fitting definitions, standardized segment lengths, again leading to more accurate lengths, quantities, and coordination. Modeling with these components in Revit provides detailers in construction firms greater certainty that the model accurately reflects the intended installation. This new functionality enables MEP level of detail 400 components to be modeled and coordinated within the Revit environment. Supporting Autodesk fabrication content within Revit helps existing fab customers migrate to Revit when they're ready, helping them to be more productive sooner. I did give a Revit 2016 new features presentation strictly for MEP, and at that time I was not entirely sure if those of you who don't own the Revit fabrication products would have access to the fabrication content. And since then, I have learned that yes, indeed, you will. There is a website out there from which you can get these products. And the name of the website is building3dcontent.com. This is an Autodesk website, or I should say an Autodesk supported website. And this is where you will go to get your fab content to be used within Revit. And as you can see, there are about 60 featured manufacturers who are providing their specific manufacturer-based content. So, what this allows us to do then is to create specification-driven ductwork. When we are placing our fabrication parts in Revit 2016, the specifications defined in the fabrication configuration define what duct materials may be used. The specification also controls material gauge, i.e. your weight, the standard segment lengths, and the connectors applied to the fitting ends. So your parts can be more confidently modeled to better conform to shop standards. And again, we're really just bringing all of this fabrication functionality into the Revit platform. Again, moving forward with the fab content, we have template-based parts that enable detailed control of dimensional values. The connector settings provide you with the ability to configure and connector conditions. We can now have catalog parts list. This will help provide modeled components that reflect dimensionally realistic parts. When you select the component you want to use, only real part sizes can be selected based on your catalog part list. And this is intended to enable you to conform to real sizes when modeling within Revit, and again, bring you a more constructible, more fab-ready model. Big one here, with this new fab content, you now can easily place hangers, and you can place these hangers along fabrication segments. These hangers are sized automatically to fit the duct, the pipe, or the cable tray that you're using, and these hangers will attach and adjust to architectural and structural elements in your link models. They automatically extend to your supporting elements, and you can export these connections to the supporting elements out to your Autodesk point layout software. This new capability enables you to locate penetrations before the deck is poured, requiring coordination ahead of construction rather than just having them figured out in the field. And I'm sure all of you know, if these hanger locations aren't properly coordinated and located before your slabs are poured, you're losing a lot of money, because doing this manually after the fact is much more expensive. The fab content supports electrical components, including cable tray, wireways, and bus. I know that I have heard a lot of requests electrically for bus duct. This is how you would use that. And again, the ability to bring in these elements via this new fab content or this new fab content interoperability will enable these components to be physically coordinated and accounted for. MEP fabrication LOD elements coordinated in Revit may be written out for consumption by Autodesk MEP fabrication products. You can send the project directly to production in the sheet metal shop via your fabrication CAM duct software, and you can also perform detailed costing and estimation in the fabrication MEP software. So you are able to pull your fab content that you've modeled in Revit, and just like you would be able to with your fab MEP file, you can take this content and use it in your fabrication CAM duct software and your fabrication MEP software. In essence, the coordinated model data is utilized in the downstream process to help with cost control and production. So this is not happening in an isolated environment. You're still able to use this content very much within the same fab MEP workflows that you would use with fabrication MEP. There have been some enhancements to the calculation options within Revit to improve performance while working with most duct and pipe systems. There's a new setting called Performance. And this is a setting that you'll find in your calculations drop down with your duct and pipe systems. So when your calculations parameter is set to performance, what this does is it suppresses the processing of system level calculations with most duct and pipe systems, in the end allowing your model to work a lot quicker and a lot smoother by disabling calculations that you wouldn't be using anyways. There is a volume only setting that will improve Revit performance while working with large fire protection, vent, and other classification system types by turning off calculation of the volume parameter. In addition, upgraded projects to the 2016 platform will have this calculations parameter set to volume only for existing systems in which the calculations parameter was set to none. And again, the idea here is let's turn off calculations that you're not using to improve your model performance when working on larger projects where model performance will become an issue. There are now more options for your pipe flow units. You can have your flow units set to liters per minute. Um, this is also has been a customer request. Might seem like a small request, but obviously there are people working in many parts in the world where this is their preferred flow method. So this will be a feature that will help you meet standards that require flow units to be measured in liters per minute. You will see improved snapping behavior in Revit 2016. Um, while working with large system models, I'm sure you've noticed, you will notice improvement to snapping behavior. Now in 2016, your remote snaps will include only the objects in the visible portion of the view rather than the view extents. In addition, snap filters are now based on the zoom level. What this means is when the zoom level is greater, when you're zoomed in tighter, fewer elements are included for remote snapping. When snap to remote objects is disabled, snapping to connectors and linked files is excluded. And basically, this is all just kind of cleaning up the snap behavior and allowing you to more easily navigate and work within your model. Um, as you can see, there also are now snap filters that will, again, allow you to more easily leverage the snap behavior in your Revit model. And that concludes our Revit 2016 presentation. I do have one question here. The question is, when it comes to structural loads, could Revit structural calculations even help a non-structural engineer unless mission critical? The answer to that, I believe, would be yes. I think that the intent is to help the structural engineer calculate structural loads in less mission critical situations. So assuming that your non-structural engineer knows enough about structural and also knows enough about Revit structural to actually use and then analyze the results that these structural load calculations would give you, then yes, my answer would be yes.